that I've been sending around letting you know my schedule for what I'm going to be doing as far as those presentations go. Mrs. Spellman's and Mrs. Corman's class on Monday, and Dr. Sankarali and Dr. Beery on Tuesday. If you don't have an NHS English class here, you are welcome to look at that schedule and just let me know if you'd like to pop in for any of those students for your presentations in the English class. So I at least wanted to give parents a little snapshot of what I will be talking with students about next week, especially as far as college applications go, because I know I'm already getting lots of questions about, I filled out my application and you need to send my transcript right away. And so I at least want to get this information in your hands so you have a foundation of what the process looks like. You've got the resources that will walk you through each step of that process. But then you know that you can always sit down and come meet with me individually, or have your son or daughter come meet with me individually if they need some walking through that either college application, military enlistment, or career process for next year. Okay, so the big thing that I first want to talk about this year is communication. I've been saying to the seniors already, communication is going to be your lifeline this year. Making sure that you are accessing the monthly senior newsletters. Did everybody get the first senior newsletter that went out? Perfect. For the month of September. And I think the name of the game this year is not only going to be communication, but it's going to be read. It sounds simple and it sounds like common sense, but read everything that I am sending, because I tell students, I promise you, if you don't stop and really read and digest it, you're going to miss something. You're going to miss a deadline. You're going to miss an experience that is important to you. So make sure that you communicate, but that you also read. Google Classroom, students know our class of 2026. I will post things in Google Classroom, all the resources I ever go over with them, all the advisory emails and information I send out will be posted there. As I said, advisory emails every Thursday morning. I send out an email to the entire class of 2026. So even students that don't have an advisory period here will get that information. They will just need to digest it and read through it on their own time. But every Thursday morning in advisory, students will have a message from me, either something to work on in school links, something to read, something coming up, just all of the important senior information will go through there. And then also the Parent Square posts. Is everybody on Parent Square, and anybody not on Parent Square and hasn't seen the posts? I, so far, am really liking that communication tool. So if you don't have access to Parent Square or missed that email that went out, just reach out to me and I'll help figure out how to get you guys signed up for that, and so that you are seeing every post that I do for seniors as well. Anything typically that I send out to seniors in their Nordonia email, which I encourage them to check daily, I will also send out to parents through Parent Square. So at least you'll have that same information and you won't be wondering what's going on and relying on your son or daughter to constantly tell you what's going on as well. So I know that can be very helpful. I have lived through it twice myself. So next, we're going to talk just real quickly. I'm going to go over some college application basics, because I think that this will calm a lot of people's fears that are coming into this process for the first time. When I go into the classroom next week, we will talk about college admission deadlines, because the other key word for this year is deadlines. Make sure if you are applying to any program, any military enlistment, career, anything, that you know what your deadlines are. When it comes to college applications, the types of applications that students are going to fill out can either be an early decision application, and I will talk to them about what is early decision. That is a very binding contract application that you are filling out. I tell students, if you are filling out an early decision application, the school is assuming that they know that by signing that contract, you have to go to that school and be able to afford it if they accept your early decision application. Why would you want to do early decision? Well, sometimes if you're applying to a school that might be a little bit of a reach, or it's extremely competitive, and you've done your research and you know this is 100% the school that you want to go to and can afford it because you won't have your financials back before then, early decision is a nice way to get into a school that might be a little bit of a reach, that is your dream school. If that is the kind of application that your son or daughter is filling out, they need to come see me and talk to me about that, because we will all have to sign pieces of that application that bind them into that contract with admission if they are accepted. Early action is just really a non-binding application that students fill out for colleges. That just means I'm applying a little bit early. I'm meeting an earlier deadline so that I will find out a little bit earlier. It does show colleges that you're interested. It shows demonstrated interest to them, so it could give you a little bit of an advantage doing early action. But it is not binding. It's just filling out an application and meeting their earlier deadline if a college has an early application deadline. Some colleges don't. Some colleges are simply regular or rolling admission. You fill out the application, they look at it, and then they will get back to you on their timeline for their decision, okay? So it's really just kind of knowing the different types of applications and what kind you're going to be filling out. Also pay attention to deadlines when it comes to financial aid and scholarship priority. We have someone here from the University of Akron tonight that's going to walk you through the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid process that opens on October 1st. Pay attention to the colleges that you are applying to and know when their financial aid or scholarship priority deadlines are, because then you will be eligible for the consideration for the most amount of money from that college, okay? So that's another deadline that you want to make sure you keep track of as well. I will talk to students about the different types of applications in terms of the different components of the application in terms of what they need to submit. So the first thing we'll talk about is the Common App, and we'll also talk about the school's website application. Two different kinds of applications that you can fill out. When you're looking at your list of schools that you're going to apply to, find out, do they take the Common App? The Common App is just one document, one application that you'll fill out. Sometimes different colleges will have supplemental pieces that you need to add on to that. But it's essentially one college application that you can send off to multiple schools. So if you're applying to 5 or 6 different schools and they all take the Common App, it's kind of nice to only have to fill out the Common App and send it off to all of them. Some schools do not accept the Common App. Some schools, it's optional. So we really just need to find out if your schools are all Common App schools or not. And if not, their application will be directly on their website. Once they fill out the application, either through Common App or the school's website, they will need to make sure they request their high school materials in school links, which I'm going to talk to them about, and I'll show you in a minute here as well. So transcripts, letters of recommendation, things of that nature all then have to be put into school links. So the first step is applying and submitting that application to the college. The second step is going into school links and telling us, the high school, which schools you've applied to, and then requesting those transcripts and those letters of recommendation and all of that. That is all housed through school links. I know I've gotten some emails that say, hey, I applied to Bowling Green, send my transcript, please. And I have to keep reminding students that email requests, that's not how we process high school materials. It's all done through school links, which I'll walk students very specifically through. Recommendations, some colleges require them, some allow you to choose if you want to send them, and some will not accept them at all. So do your research, make sure you know if the schools you're applying to, where those recommendations fit into place. Essays and personal statements, there's definitely one on the Common App. Again, just take a look and make sure you know what the requirements are for those. And then your test scores. We've talked about this a lot, your ACT and your SAT. Does your college require it? Are they test optional? Are they test blind? All those documents and resources we've gone over the last year or two. And I'll resend those out so that you guys have those as well. The question is about letters of recommendation and just some details. I'm going to go over that in a little bit here, so I think I probably will be able to hit on your question. And if I don't, make sure you ask me and let me know, and we'll go through it. No, I have to. No, you're okay. Okay. All right, so the next slide, one thing, if students decide to fill out the Common App, there is very specific high school situation that they are going to ask questions about. That is what we have included on this slide, because when you fill out the Common App, they will ask all of these details right here, and I know students get a little bit confused by that. So this is a slide that they will have, that I will email this all to parents as well. You'll get a copy of the recording tonight and also the slides so that you have all the links and everything in there. But on the Common App, they will ask for each of this individual information, and so that's how you answer those questions, because I know that usually causes a lot of questions for students. I will make sure I go through the Common App with students so that they have an idea and an understanding of what they are going to see. Has anybody in here already signed up for a Common App account and you've been perfect? Excellent. That is something that I sent out to students, that they could start that this summer. They can get on there and look at the essay. They can get on there and look at the application and start filling things out. So I will talk to students about how to get to Common App, how to create an account, how to start looking through it. And then on this slide, it offers many different links that will actually help you tremendously when it comes to sitting down and filling out that Common App. It can seem a little overwhelming and it can be a little bit confusing, especially for very individual situations. And so these help articles in here will be your best friend if you are filling out the Common App. Down at the bottom, that first year toolkit sends you to a website that has a whole bunch of different PDFs that you can download on every topic of every subject that you're going to have to fill out with Common App. So this slide is a great resource to have next to you if you are going to be filling out the Common App. But I will really walk through students a lot of the Common App pieces when it comes to that. Pros with the Common App, it's like I said, one application for many colleges. It reduces the number of applications to fill out. There is an organizational tool that shows you the college's deadlines for the type of application that you're filling out. It shows you if they allow you to send in teacher recommendations. Some colleges don't even allow it. Some will limit you to a certain amount. In Common App, it lists all of those details for each of the schools that you add to your Common application. So it really does have a great organizational tool in there. It does communicate with school links, so it makes your life a whole lot easier when students are going into school links to request the high school materials. It will actually link the two, Common App, and it'll transfer all that data to school links, and then there's a lot fewer boxes and things that you need to check off in school links, so it is nice with that. Some colleges don't accept it, though. Sometimes there are additional forms required, and it can be a little tedious. And the recommender piece can be confusing, but I've got a tool that I think will help you with that as well. Testing policies. Make sure that students, I'm going to talk to them about knowing what is your college's, your school's testing policy. Are they test optional? Can you choose to send your test scores in? If you're allowed to choose to send your test scores in, when would I do that? Our rule of thumb is if you look at what their average test score is, and or the range of test scores, and if your test score is above the middle 50%, it's going to give you an advantage. And so we say go ahead and send your test scores. If it's going to be below that 50%, we would probably suggest you hold off and don't send that test score if you have the option to send it or not. That's kind of the rule of thumb when it comes to test optional schools. I will tell you, numerous competitive schools are starting to switch back to test scores required. Ohio State University is one of the Ohio State University is one of them. They are requiring test scores from this group. How they look at it, those will be questions that when you go on those campus visits, when you talk to them, ask them about their test policy. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you know how they're using those and any information that they can give you when it comes to submitting those for those applications. There's also some good links down at the bottom for you if you're trying to make a decision between sending your test score and not sending your test score, that I think will also be great reference for you as well. So when it comes to the ACT or SAT, just keep in mind that if you are trying to meet an early deadline, like November 1st is a huge early action and even early decision deadline. Make sure that you are retaking your ACT or taking your SAT before those applications are due. Make sure you're going to have those scores back. It is important that they can consider those through that application process. Now, some schools don't require them, and some schools you might not even be sending in test scores, so that might not come into play for you. But if your ACT or SAT score is going to impact your college application and you still want a chance to retake that, make sure you get those in if you have an early deadline and you know what that college's deadline is. I did put the registration page link on there for both SAT and ACT. Those are the dates coming up, but again, just make sure that that test score is going to get back so that you meet those deadlines and timelines. If you are retaking the SAT, I remind students, don't forget, if you need a fee waiver because you're on free or reduced lunches, come see me. That gets you free test prep. It also gets you free scores sent to different colleges, because I know when you have to go back and send your test scores, they will charge you a fee to do that. They just get you every which way they can, don't they? They'll charge you a separate fee for each college that you have to go back and send those to, because those have to come directly from the testing agency and not off your transcript. We don't even put them on the transcript because technically we don't own those scores, you do. So that has to be submitted directly from the testing agency. Register right away to meet those deadlines. I gave you another link to that test prep resource. I've given this, I think sent it out to students at least half a dozen times. So if you do still need those test prep resources, those are on that slide for you. And again, I'll make sure I send these slides out to you. Okay, so completing college applications. This is where I really talk the students through the process, because I know it can seem overwhelming. But everything is in writing, and you've got lots of documents and resources in here, I will tell them, that will walk you through the whole thing. So essentially, the first arrow up there says basically complete and submit your college application, whether that's Common App or whether that's directly from the school's website. Okay, that's the first step. Get that done, get that sent off to the school and submit it. So now the school has an account with your student's name attached to it that, oh, they sent in an application, so we need to start getting files for them and we need to put everything together. If you do this in the opposite way, if you put everything in School Links and request your high school transcripts before you've submitted those test scores, you could, not necessarily always, but you could have a problem with then things are getting lost because there isn't an account to match it to. So I have seen hiccups happen with that sometimes. So complete and submit that application, okay? Then what students are going to do is they're going to add those colleges to School Links and request the high school materials through there. I can't click on it tonight, but I did actually send this last week in the Parent Square post and also the student email. If you click on that link right there, the School Links College Application Manager Guide, that will walk you through every single step of School Links and exactly what you have to do once you've submitted your college application, so that we know, oh, okay, go ahead and send the transcript to this school or that school or whichever schools you've applied to. You will actually also put in there your teacher recommendations. So when you get into School Links, one of the things when you set up College Application Manager students is it's going to ask you about the teacher recommendations. In that guide there, it's about 16 pages long, but part of that's because it has screenshots for exactly what to click on School Links, to request the transcript, to add the college, to request teacher recommendations. That document will walk you through every single facet of what you would need to do in School Links, okay? So that's the second step. Make sure that you add your colleges and request the high school materials and follow every step in this guide if it's something that you need submitted for you, whether it's teacher recommendations or not. And then you'll also use School Links to track your high school material submission. So no more, you don't have to go in and see Mrs. Volan. I know for those of you who've already done this, you don't have to go tell Mrs. Volan, okay, I'm ready for you to send my transcript. It's all updated in School Links. And I will know, because I'll log in there every day and see, okay, who has submitted their transcript, who has added everything in School Links. I'm ready to send that information and I will get it sent off. You can then have your student go into School Links and track exactly when the transcript was submitted, when the letter of recommendation was submitted, and all of that, okay? It will also give you the option to ask for a fee waiver. If you're on free or reduced lunches, this is also where you will let me know, hey, I'm on free and reduced lunches. I need to have a fee waiver so that I don't have to pay that fee in submitting that application, okay? I always tell students, my favorite thing to do is to put November 1st on your calendar senior year. Because if you can get all of your college applications out and submitted, you are going to meet any deadline that a college has for you. Early action, early decision, scholarship priority, financial aid priority, so you can get the most money that you can from them. November 1st is a great target date for your student to have that all their applications are done. Now I know some students still haven't made that decision yet and still don't have that final list. And so yes, there are going to be lots of applications still going out by November 1st. But I like a target date. And so if it were me, I would want to just have that stress off of me and everything filled out and sent so you know you're meeting all those deadlines. If you don't have them done by November 1st, that's okay. Just make sure you know those deadlines that college has for you and you're meeting those deadlines, okay? This next slide is just some common questions. I'm not going to read through all that. When I send out the slides, you guys will be able to read through each of those. Just some reminders that I will talk to students about is follow up and track your high school materials and school links. If you are a CVCC student and you're doing the Common App, it's going to ask you if you want to report more than one school. Do not report a second school. You are a Nordonia High School enrolled student. You just happen to also go to CVCC and get some great things at CVCC, and they will see that on your transcript. But don't add CVCC as a second school because it will just confuse everything and cause you a lot of headache. Deadlines, I'll say that again, personal email only. Make sure when you're filling out college applications and creating accounts, you're using your personal email address. If you don't, if you use your Nordonia student address, you will never get any communication that a college sends to you because outside agencies cannot email individual student Nordonia accounts. Always, always, always use your personal email address. Otherwise, that'll be another headache that you'll have. Again, like I said, transcripts must be submitted through school links. No email requests just because we actually have to send it electronically through school links. That's the system. So you've got to make sure you've got everything set up within there to let us know exactly what you want to do. I will talk to them about writing essays because for Common App there is a required essay. There might be additional essays depending upon schools you're applying to. If you have an English class here, students will actually be working on their college application Common App essay and completing it and revising it and brainstorming and all of that in their Nordonia High School English class. So that's kind of a nice thing is that component will be done with a teacher's guidance and eyes on that and review and conferencing with that teacher. There are resources online, just some tips here that I'll go over with them as well, but that will be done in your English class here at Nordonia High School. Okay, recommendation letters. When a student gets to this point that they are finding that they are required or allowed to send a letter of recommendation and they want to, what we tell students is, well, first, obviously, check with the individual school to find out if you can or if they require or don't allow letters of recommendation. I can write one, especially if you've got extenuating circumstances or something that happened in high school that I just need to vouch for and verify. And let them know, like, maybe it was a little bit of a rocky road, but we got there and we're moving forward. So let me know if you need that. Follow the directions specifically provided by school links to make sure you're requesting letters for the right college. Once you get into that document that shows you everything to click on and add, you will see that you are actually assigning to each college which teacher letter of recommendation you want to go. So you'll actually pick a teacher's name from that drop-down list, Mr. Davis or Mrs. Corman or Mrs. Spellman. You'll pick the teacher for each of those colleges that you're allowed to send it to if you choose to. Okay, you'll see that in the directions there. You can submit in school links for non-teacher recommendations, but if you are using the Common App, it's much easier and a lot better to just go through the Common App and in the recommenders tab, have students put in that non-Nordonia teacher and have them submit it through the actual Common App website. It's a lot easier and less confusing to do non-Nordonia teacher letters of recommendation that way. We always tell students that colleges do ask, if they're asking for a letter of recommendation or if you want to send one, we recommend sending it from an academic teacher, one of your highest level of academics that you've taken most recently. So maybe a junior year AP course or a junior year honors course, or if you're going to an art school, your junior year art teacher, or if you're taking AP art this year, maybe your AP art teacher. So most recent highest level program teacher that fits kind of the college that you're applying to and maybe the major that you're applying to. Yeah, absolutely. You can pick CVCC teachers. I don't think you can select them in school links in the drop-down, but if you're doing Common App, you can put in the CVCC teacher and their email, and it'll send them a request, and then they can do it that way. Good question. Yeah. If you are asking for a letter of recommendation, We recommend give teachers a minimum of 2 weeks. Do not walk in, I'm just warning you, I'm just trying to prepare you. Don't walk in and say, hey, Mrs. Spellman, so my college application's due tomorrow and I really need a letter of recommendation. Can you just hurry up and write one? There's 320 of you, actually now 321 of you, that are going to be asking teachers for recommendations. So give them a minimum of 2 weeks advance notice. They will appreciate that, and it'll be reflected in the letter that they write, trust me. So make sure that you talk to teachers and let them know. Even though you're submitting them in school links, I think it's very important to approach the teacher first and just let them know, ask them, hey, Mrs. Spellman, is it okay if I put in a request for you to write a letter of recommendation for me? Do you have any reservations? And they'll let you know, or I just can't get it done right now, or maybe ask a teacher that's a better fit in terms of, what you're applying for and what your major might be. But just do the common courtesy thing and just ask them and let them know that request is going to be coming, so that maybe you can change it to a different teacher if you need to. Also, last thing, complete the senior brag sheet survey in School Links. That's part of that 16-page document that tells you how to do that. That will just give teachers some more information about what are all your accomplishments, what awards have you gotten, what are you hoping to study, so that they can really take your classroom experience and what your goals are and craft that letter that colleges want to see. How did you perform in their classroom? Who are you going to be as a student on our campus? So pick the teacher that's really going to make you come to life and show that college how you're going to contribute to that campus or what kind of student you're going to be in their classroom. Okay? School links, where you need to be, just some reminders that I'll go over with students, all the different tabs in School Links that they've got access to and resources and documents that they can look up there. But we'll be going through all of those in the classroom when we talk. Pointers for students, I always tell students, take charge of this process. This is your life. This is your process. This is your decision. Now, you have lots of trusted and loving adults around you that want nothing but the best for you, so I would definitely communicate with them and keep them in the loop and ask them for help. But it really is your process. Take charge of that. I find that, how do I say this lightly? The students that don't do this process and execute this process have a much harder time with that transition and have a much harder time with knowing what's going on and being able to answer questions and just kind of go through the process. So make sure you encourage your student to take charge of that process. Now I know, I've got one that I didn't even have to talk to, and he did it all. And then I have another that if I just sat back and told her take charge of it, that wasn't going to happen. So I completely understand that you have lots of different types of students out there, but just, more encouraging, tell them, go see Mrs. Ross. I'm going to ask you tomorrow how your conference went with Mrs. Ross, and I'll help walk them through the process and everything. Stay organized, have your forms, your deadlines ahead of time. Communicate, like I said, with parents, counselor, and recommending teachers. Focus on the right fit for you. Don't worry about where everyone else is going. Don't worry about what you think everybody thinks you should do, or you should go to this prestigious college because you're so smart and that's just what you should do. What do you want to do? Nobody else is living your life for you every day next year. And so find that right fit. Find where you're going to learn to fly and just where you feel like you're at home. Don't panic. I'm here to help you. So we'll get through it together. I'll talk to them just about things to do now. So I will also be going through with them before we go through all this. I will make sure that we go through graduation requirements and making sure that they know exactly what they have left to graduate. Or if they're working towards a diploma with honors, they need to check their transcript and see if they've got all of those things. We'll be going through all of those things individually with students. I'll be encouraging them, if you don't have that final list of schools or that plan for after high school, and you want to go talk to Mrs. Monaco still, let's get you an appointment with Mrs. Monaco to talk about your career interests and what the right fit is for you. So lots of work still to be done, and sometimes students just need to take 2 or 3 steps backwards, and that's okay. I will make sure that I meet with all of them individually. I didn't get to it all last year, but I'm going to start the day after my presentations. So I'm going to tell students, email me if you need to meet sooner rather than later because you're not at the point of filling out applications. Email me and we'll go through all those kinds of stuff. Finish your campus visits. Create your list of schools to apply to. View the applications, all of this stuff. and meet with me first and foremost. If you're stuck, if you go through all of this stuff and you are just stuck, get your Chromebook, come in and see me, and we will get you over that hump and keep you moving forward towards all this, okay? Read your NHS email daily. I can't stress that enough to students this year. Just other important information, those are the things that we'll talk about. Graduation plans. Once I get done with the classroom visits and I have students look at their transcript, I am going to handwrite what requirements students each have and mail you home a copy of the transcript and a copy of what requirements your son or daughter still has to check off in order to walk across that stage on May 21st this year. So that's my next task. That will be coming home, mailed home in September, okay? Current transcripts. I tell students this all the time. If you want to see your current transcripts, it's in School Links. I've probably given them these directions at least 15 different times. They can always see their transcripts. They can also send an official transcript if they need to, like a college coach or a scholarship or NCAA. Those are the steps that you need to take in School Links, and students can send to those agencies on their own. College applications have to go through the college application manager steps. Is that it? I think that might be it. Okay. I know that was a lot of information. Yes? So the question was, if they're taking CCP classes, do they need to request that transcript from the college? CCP classes are listed on your Nordonia transcript. So colleges will see your final grades from 9th, 10th, and 11th and all the classes that you took. They will also see classes in progress in 12th grade on your transcript. Now, if you accept and decide to go to a college, that is when you'll have to reach out to the college that the student took CCP classes for, go through their transcript request process, only once you choose a college and in order to get those credits transferred. Nope, not for the application. Mm-hmm. Any other questions about that? I will be here afterwards, so you've got plenty of time to talk to me and ask questions too if you've got more of an individual question. But I do want to turn it over right now to Amira. Amira is here from the University of Akron. She is a wealth of information for you because I tell all of my students, if you are going to be going to any kind of education next year and you're going to have to pay out of pocket, please fill out the FAFSA so you can see what kind of financial aid you will be eligible for from the government. You might think, you know what, they're not going to give me any money. Fill it out anyway because you never know what circumstances are going to change in life. And if something does change, you're not going to want to have to go back and refill it out. So that's why I try and get this information to everyone, because starting October 1st, you'll be able to apply for that. And I think it's important that everybody paying for education next year fills that out. So she's here to give you just some general information and walk you through that whole maze. Okay? Amira, thank you.
All right, everyone. And then we'll have a... All right, so just some housekeeping. When you guys came in the back, there were some handouts. Some of those are internal information, so scholarships specific to the University of Akron. There is also a general scholarship handout, so I do recommend that you grab that. And then there is a little half sheet that speaks about the FAFSA process. So I work at the University of Akron. All right, I am in education and outreach. I do not recruit for Akron, so no pressure. Okay, there's no pressure. I am here to just share information and answer all your questions, hopefully, regarding FAFSA, all right, and that completion process and just the financial aid process, all right. I do ask that you hold your questions until the end because that'll allow me to get through my information, and then again, I'll hang back as well if you have something very specific to your student or your family, but my goal is to hopefully answer all your questions through this information. All right, so let's jump right in. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. It is the 2627 file. Thank you. All right. Okay, so what is financial aid? So financial aid is just a different group of funding sources, whether that be scholarships, grants, loans, private loans, etc. Those are things that are going to help you cover the cost of attendance, right? So this is just a chart that details the different types of aid. So that top section, we have gift aid. So the gift aid, those are the scholarships and grants. That's the free money that you are not responsible for repaying, okay? So to get access to grants, for example, you're going to apply to that FAFSA application. Some states will have different grants you can apply to separately, but for the most part, you're going to apply to that FAFSA application to get access to those different federal and state grants. And then scholarships, again, you'll have a plethora of information, whether that's within the universities themselves, the colleges, whether that's through your counselor, different community organizations, those are the resources. So that's the gift aid that you do not need to repay, all right? Self-help aid, that is the different funding sources that you will either work towards or you will need to repay. So that first section there, that first category is the student employment or federal work study. I'll talk about that a little later, but that's where you're a student on campus, you're working, and the university is paying you to work, okay? Subsidized and unsubsidized loans, those are offered to students who complete the FAFSA application, and I'll go over that in detail in the next couple of slides. And then we have PLUS loans for parents who have also helped their student complete that FAFSA application. That's also a federal loan. And then private loans, those can be from different credit unions, different institutes, banks, things like that, that you will borrow that money and repay. And then lastly, we have payment plans. So every university will have some sort of payment plan that you can sign up for. And we'll also have you also have 529 college savings plans. So if you're a family who has invested in that, at some point when you know what you're going to owe, what your out-of-pocket costs are, you can borrow from that 529 savings plan to help pay for college costs. Okay, so federal aid. So that, again, you're applying to that FAFSA application to get access to federal aid. We have free money, again, the federal Pell Grant. So that maximum amount, if you, based on your income when you complete that FAFSA, is about $7,395 that you'll get for the year. The next grant is the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. That's about $2,000. And then we have a Teach Grant. That's specific to my students who want to become teachers and want to specialize in a field, maybe that's English, reading, science, those funds are offered to the students who specifically want to teach those subjects, okay? So with the Pell Grant, that's guaranteed based on your income when you complete the FAFSA, right? The SCOG grant, that $2,000 amount, that's going to be that first come, first serve. So the sooner you complete that FAFSA, you're more likely to get access to those funds because they are limited. So there is only so much funding that's allocated for students to receive those funds. And then federal work study. So that's the student who has completed that FAFSA application. They fall under specific income guidelines that will qualify them to receive that federal work study. It is also first come, first serve. Your student's name will be put on the list. Once they get to the university, it's up to them to find a job. Once they find employment, they get paid. So that federal work study is a $4,000 amount, but it's not like a scholarship, so they won't get the funds up front. As they work, every 2 weeks, they'll get a check, whether it's direct deposit. They'll get a check just like any other job. It's up to them to determine how they're going to utilize that funding. So are they going to use their paycheck for school supplies or school expenses, or are they going to just spend it and eat out? That's their spending money. So, but it's not on the front end. Work study is always on the back end. Your student's going to work first, earn the money, and then it's up to them to decide what they're doing. All right, state aid. So again, your student is applying to that FAFSA application. When they apply, some of the questions on the FAFSA will ask if your student has a parent who was deceased in the war or a first responder. So they'll have opportunities even just directly through that FAFSA application to get access to different aid. They can also go to the Ohio OhioHigherEd.org, that website there, if you have, if those are your circumstances or you know someone, and just research the different opportunities for state aid. And then the OCOG, Ohio College Opportunity Grant. That is, again, based on completing that FAFSA application. It's looking at your need. So as determined by FAFSA, when they look at your financial information, if you fall in those income guidelines, you'll be eligible for $4,000 annually each school year. That aid is going to go for tuition and fees only, okay? And I didn't mention that about the previous aid. So SCOG and the federal Pell, that is refundable, so it can go to tuition and fees, housing and meal plan, or if you have what I call extra, you have an abundance of aid, it can be refunded. OCOG is one of those grants that will not be refunded. It has to go towards your tuition and fees only, okay? For my male students, to receive OCOG, you have to have signed up for a selective service within 3 months of your 18th birthday. So a lot of times we'll get a student who'll come in and they'll see it on their application, on their award package as estimate, all right, EST, and it won't necessarily apply. So one of the benchmarks and one of the things we check for before we can award a male student that OCOG money is if they completed the selective service, all right? Some schools will even charge you. So if your student did not complete selective service, they'll see a charge on their bill. All right, so just rule of thumb, if your son is turning 18 or 3 months shy of that date, they want to make sure they complete the selective service, and then that will qualify them for the OCOG funds. Scholarships, so Mrs. Ross touched on this, she did an excellent job. Different opportunities, so within the university, always check within that college that you're planning on going to see what scholarship opportunities are available, okay? When she touched on completing the FAFSA, a lot of scholarships use that as a benchmark. So some families will say, oh, we make too much money, we're higher income earners. Even if that's the case, even if you don't think you're gonna qualify for any grant money, grant funding, please complete that FAFSA application, because internally, for example, we have several university scholarships that to just a prereq, just to qualify it, we check that as a benchmark, did that student complete FAFSA? If they said yes, if we have it on file, then we can actually award them some funding, okay? So rule of thumb, it'll give you more opportunities to get different scholarships. So always apply for FAFSA every year. All right, so universities and colleges internally, always check those websites as your students are narrowing down their top 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 colleges. Have them look on those websites to see those scholarship deadlines, okay? Your high school counselor, of course, those resources, always use those and check those emails like Ms. Ross said, and then different foundations, so parents, some places of employment, they may offer scholarships, students where you're working. I know like Chipotle, for example, has tuition remission, all right, Amazon, all right? So look at different places of employment for different type of scholarship opportunities or even tuition reimbursement opportunities. And then scholarship sites, those are some that's also on the handout that I gave to you. When you apply for those scholarship sites, create a separate email specifically for scholarships, okay? A lot of those websites are gonna have you create a profile, and they're gonna start sending you scholarships based on what you selected, based on your GPA, based on your major, based on that profile information. So just create a separate email specifically for scholarships, so you don't feel like you're spamming yourself, okay? Because they're gonna send you and generate scholarship opportunities for you. All right, the different types of loans. So when your student applies as a freshman, okay, they have 2 types of loans that they can qualify for, subsidized or unsub. As a freshman, the maximum amount that they can borrow is $5,500, okay? So some parents will say or believe their student can borrow as much as they want. They can take out loans. That's not the case. So the federal loan limit for an incoming freshman is $5,500, okay? For my students who are CCP or CCV, I'm messing it up, but you have college credit plus credits. You may be considered, and I'm going to circle back 2 things here, but you may be considered based on your credits, maybe you're a sophomore, all right? So based on credits, if you're a sophomore, you'll have opportunities for more aid. So the borrowing max that a freshman can borrow is $5,500. A sophomore can borrow $6,500. So even though you're a freshman, traditionally, as far as this is your first year on the college campus or at a college officially, if you have those college credits that technically make you eligible as a senior, or a sophomore, then you'll get additional funding, okay, that you can borrow. But when you do the FAFSA, so this is me circling, when you do the FAFSA, it'll feel like a trick question. It'll say, what's the highest level of college completion or something like that. Please put your high school diploma, even though you're technically sophomore status in college with those CCP credits, you, to a incoming student to a FAFSA application, you are a traditional freshman, okay? So do not include those CCP credits. Later on, when we get those official transcripts, that's when they'll consider that, and then once you start your freshman year, even though you're a freshman, you'll have credits that may put you at sophomore status, okay? All right, sorry. Circling back to the loan. So traditional freshmen, the maximum they can borrow is $5,500 in loans. That is usually split, but it will depend on something called a student aid index, which is that calculation that the FAFSA determines based on your income, whether that is a higher income earning family or a lower income earning family, but typically you'll get the split, okay? So it's usually subsidized of $3,500 and unsub of $2,000, all right? So these are exactly the same with the exception of the interest rate. So you have that 6-month grace period before payment begins. So that means 6 months after your student graduates, 6 months after they stop attending college for whatever reason, the lender is going to require you to start repayment, okay? The interest rates are listed there. They do not change once you borrow, but sometimes the feds will make those changes. It won't be for your cohort, but just look on that studentaid.gov website if you are, the moment you're taking out that loan, if you want the specific interest rate. And then the student is the borrower, not the parent. So you're the student. If you borrow this money, you're responsible for repayment. Repayment does not need to happen until 6 months after you graduate or 6 months after you stop attending college. The interest, I try to have my students think of it this way. It's a little silly. When you see subsidized loan, that means the government is subsidizing or paying for the interest while you're in college. I want you to think sub sandwich. Sub sandwich because you're a starving, struggling college student. You're trying to eat. You're trying to survive. You would love that sub sandwich. So the sub sandwich, here comes my air quotes, it's a better loan because that interest is not adding up while you are in college, okay? It's deferred. With the unsubsidized loan, the moment you take out that loan, the moment you borrow it, every month, you're gonna get those interests. Those fees are added on, okay? So that's the difference between the two. It's just how the interest is applied to the loans. Both need to be repaid at that 6-month grace period. If you wanna start repayment while you're in college, that's an option. Typically, parents don't do that, but strategically, if you wanted to pay one of these loans back, it would make more sense to pay that unsubsidized loan while you're in college because that's the one that's accruing the interest, right? Parent loans, okay? So parent plus loans, that's an opportunity for parents who have completed that FAFSA with their student. It can be both biological parents. It can also be a spouse who can apply for a plus loan. Even if one parent, let's say mom was the one who completed the FAFSA with the student, but dad wants to apply for the plus loan, that's an option, okay? Or if the spouse of dad wants to apply for the loan, that's an option, if dad is remarried or mom is remarried, okay? So that interest rate's a little higher, about 9.8%. The parent, you are responsible for repaying this loan. It is an unsubsidized loan, so that interest is going to start accruing right when you borrow. And then you can also defer payment, so you get that same 6-month grace period. 6 months after your student stops attending college, 6 months after they graduate, that's when you're going to be responsible for repayment. But as always, you can make payments while your student is in college. And then any additional funds that you have, so if you have a gap in aid, right, or if you have an overage in aid, and your student's tuition, meal plan, and fees, everything is paid for, and you have extra money, you can then use that money for any other college expense, right? Or you can strategically borrow exactly what you need, right? You don't have to borrow that extra, for a rainy day, a new laptop, whatever. You can borrow specifically what that bill is saying is due, okay? It does consider your credit. So we have two options, two scenarios. So if you apply for a PLUS loan, you, the parent, biological spouse, whoever applies, if they are accepted, they have great credit, they can get, again, that full amount. They can specifically say they just want just enough to cover the bill. They can get that additional, which is that full cost of attendance. So that can include everything, the direct costs, what we charge you for at the university, so tuition fees, meal plan, housing, but also indirect costs, which we estimate at our university about $4,700, but that is the indirect things like a parking permit, miscellaneous expenses, personal expenses, transportation, all right? So those are the things that we don't necessarily bill you for, but when you apply for a PLUS loan, you can get that full amount, the full cost of attendance. So first scenario, you apply, you have great credit as a parent, you get up to that full cost of attendance, or you can adjust it as what you need. Second scenario, you apply, and as a parent, maybe you don't have the best credit. I still encourage all parents to apply, because if you are denied, your student gets an additional $4,000 in unsubsidized loans. So that previous max that a freshman can borrow, $5,500, is now $9,500. All right, but it will be an unsubsidized loan, additional $4,000. All right, so rule of thumb, always apply for that PLUS loan just to see what opportunities you have for your student to get additional funding. All right, that free application for federal student aid will open on October 1st, okay? And it will always open every October 1st. That's the new federal law, so it will not change. With that being said, this is every year. And I'm saying that, and I know it sounds silly, but I'll have freshmen who come in our office, and it's going into, sophomores, and they're like, I did my FAFSA, but it was back in high school. Okay, so it's sophomore year and they don't have money and they haven't did their FAFSA because they forgot to do it. So it is every single year while they are in college, they're going to complete that free application for federal student aid, and it will open every October 1st, okay? Priority deadline for Akron is December 1st, but again, you want to complete this as soon as it opens, because that's going to give you opportunity to get additional aid like the work study or that SCOG grant. Everyone doesn't get that. All right, you're going to get maximum opportunities. Also, if you do this early, maybe you get randomly selected for verification, right? We can't control that. The federal government selects who they want, right? They may ask for additional paperwork, tax transcripts, etc. You might have to sign some documents. You may have to come in with your ID and do like an identification statement. There could be anything. There's no rhyme or reason. Any student can get selected. So if you are selected, it's better to get that information submitted to us, to your financial aid office as soon as possible, because that'll streamline that process and that won't hinder you getting packaged. You'll get your aid, okay? So these are just some important things or changes with the 26-27 FAFSA. So it's now an instant Social Security number match, okay? So when you guys, before you complete the FAFSA, you have to do something which is create a FSA ID, all right? So that's your username and password. You're gonna use that every single time you sign up for FAFSA. For my parents who have a student who has already attended college, and you have one in college, yours will not change. So if you already have one as a parent, or if you yourself happen to remember yours, or they reset yours for you, you're gonna keep your same FSA ID. Incoming freshmen, before you do this FAFSA, you're going to create a new one, okay? So it used to be where it took 3 days to authenticate to make sure you were a real person and not a robot, not a scammer. Now it's instant. So you can do that, create that account, that FSA ID, password, and username, and you'll know right then if it's been accepted or not, okay? You all have to consent. So students and parents, any contributor will have to consent to your information being imported from the IRS. It's always going to use, FAFSA uses 2 tax years prior. So the 26-27 FAFSA is going to import tax information from 2024. All right? If your family has experienced a loss in income from 2024 until now, all right, any reason, whether that was a layoff, health issues, etc. All right, you're going to come to the school, whichever your school is, or all your colleges that you have chosen, and you're going to fill out something called a special circumstance form. You're going to submit supporting documentation that's going to list or state that your income has decreased and have supporting W-2s or tax information that shows what has happened. We will then recalculate your package or aid, and you may qualify for additional funding, whether that be grants, okay, or any internal scholarship. So if you have a loss in income at any point in time when you're doing the FAFSA, please report that information, okay? Contributors, that has been simplified. You used to need your parents. The student would have to fill out their section at some point early in the app. It will ask for them to submit the FAFSA to their contributor or their parent so they can fill out that section. That is now simplified, so they're only using an email. You don't need the social security number of your parent or the birth date, so that's allowing that to be a little more easier for families. And again, you're gonna consent to have that tax information imported in. All right, so students, if you have parents who are divorced, all right, they are going to want the parent who pays the most, who supports the child the most, and if that parent is remarried, they will also want the spouse, okay? Every household dynamic is a little different, but they want the parent who provides the most income. It used to be who the student lives with, but they want the parent who provides the most support for that student, and then if that parent is remarried, they're gonna ask for the spouse's information as well, okay? Before I jump down to the next one, this is a question that I get a lot. When you complete the FAFSA as a student, you're only using your biological parents or adoptive parents. If there is a situation where maybe there's a temporary guardianship, or maybe there has been an estranged relationship with the parents, that is not gonna qualify. So if you have a biological parent or an adoptive parent, you're gonna use them. But if you're in a unique situation, maybe there was a loss of a parent, then you will be considered provisionally independent. So on the back end, once you complete the FAFSA, you'll get selected for verification, and then you will have to submit those documents to let us know what makes you independent. So was there some type of custody issue? Was there maybe a loss of a parent? Was there any homelessness? So you'll have that supporting documentation, and then we will package your student as an independent student. They will not need the parent. But rule of thumb, most students will be dependents, and they will need that biological parent's information or the spouse, okay? And then you can add 20 schools to the FAFSA application. Keep in mind, if you don't have access to a waiver, you are paying for 20 applications. So just keep that in mind. I do try to encourage students to narrow it down if they can. Some students will say, well, I can't do my FAFSA on October 1st because I didn't apply to any schools. That's not the case. Always apply to FAFSA first on October 1st. At least have maybe your top 3. You may not have your top 20, but at least have your top 3 on that October 1st deadline. You can always come back and edit. But I like students to kind of do a one and done. So even if there's like a Hail Mary, that one fancy school all the way across the country, throw that on there, number 19, okay? On the back end, as a student, it is your responsibility to make sure you actually apply and follow through, okay? So the colleges will not get your FAFSA unless you have, 1, added them to your FAFSA, and 2, applied them and accepted to the college. So it's both and. But rule of thumb, just on October 1st, whether you have your mind made up or not, just put like your top 5 or your top 20, and then you can always go back and change it or always go back and follow up and apply to those colleges. All right, timeline. So again, FAFSA opens on October 1st. They will have a beta testing phase. So they did that the last year. Didn't get any horror stories, okay? Hope that reassures you. Didn't have anyone come in our office crying like it didn't work, everything went terrible. So if you want to really get ahead of it, you can be a part of that beta phase when it does open. I believe that will be September for the majority, like general population, okay? You can always check that studentaid.gov website if you're unsure, check with your counselor. But if you want to test the waters, be the first ones, you can always apply a little early, okay? And you won't have to resubmit on the 1st of October, all right? SAI, that's that student aid index. It used to be called EFC, expected family contribution. FAFSA calculates your income from that tax information that they import. They determine where you fall and how much money they think you can contribute, okay? They now exclude, because they included it last one, and now they're excluding it, okay? So they no longer consider family farms, small businesses, less than 100 workers, and then family fishing businesses. So that's a change. And then they did add that foreign income tax credit. So if you qualify, most people don't, they do add that back to consider your adjusted gross income for Pell. And then that SAI, the cap. So the maximum, when they calculate your SAI, that student aid index, if you're at that $14,000 mark, you won't be qualified for Pell. And that's based on their calculation when they review your income, okay? All right, so this is that SAI broken down a little bit more. So again, they're looking at your financial need, and that's based on the cost of attendance. So that's those direct costs. So indirect costs, so tuition fees, housing, meal plan, and then those miscellaneous things, books, supplies, transportation, personal expenses, and then they're gonna subtract the SAI, so that's what FAFSA determines, what your family can contribute. And then from there, we're gonna subtract any other financial assistance, so that can be any scholarships, internally, externally, that you receive from your college, and that's gonna determine your need, okay? And when we look at your need at a college, that's how we then determine what we can give you, right? What scholarships, what grants, things like that. All right, and this is just that FSA ID that I referenced. So if you are planning on doing that beta phase, I definitely encourage you to do this tonight, today, this week. You can get it off your to-do list, you and your student, because you just need to have this complete prior to that October 1st. So I do not recommend October 1st that you create this the same day, even though they will approve it the same day. I want you to at least give it a full 24 hours. You should get a email from them that says you have been verified, okay? So until you get that email that verifies that your information is correct, please do not start that FAFSA application, because it'll basically let you go through it, but you won't be able to sign it, so it'll be incomplete. So it'll just kind of snowball and kind of put you behind. All right, so rule of thumb, just make sure you complete that FSA ID password and username, and you can do that at studentaid.gov. It will use your permanent email. So students, do not use your high school email. So use a different, separate email that you're gonna keep with you all 4 or 5 years of college, okay? And then same phone number can change, but your phone number, social security number, please don't guess. If you have a typo or you transpose a number, it kind of becomes a nightmare. When you're spelling your name, if your name is unique and you have like a hyphen or a lowercase, whatever, please spell it as it is on your documents and keep it consistent, all right? All right, and this is just a recap of the process. So you're gonna complete that FAFSA on October 1st. You're gonna beat that priority deadline and get it in no later than December 1st, but please aim for October 1st. The government will process your application. That can take up to 2 weeks. I've seen it come back to us at the university as early as 3 business days, but it can take up to 2 weeks. Once we get it, we review those results, okay? We're gonna look and determine, do we need any additional information? At that point, have you been selected for verification? Again, if you have special circumstances, like I shared in the past, you may get selected for verification, okay? As soon as you submit those documents, we can determine your awards, meaning we can package you for the scholarships, the grants, and the loans, okay? All right, so you'll get that award letter in the mail around March. Most colleges will be sending them around the same time if you applied and got accepted around the same time. With the exception of that early decision, this is the opportunity when you get those award letters. I tell my parents and students to literally lay them across the table, and we're doing math. And we're gonna see how much does it cost to go to this college, full cost. So tuition, fees, housing, meal plan, if you're staying on campus, getting that full experience. That paper, that award letter will list those indirect costs. Again, we estimated about $4,700. So for example, it might be about $31,000 to attend the University of Akron. You're then gonna subtract the gift aid, scholarships, grants, the money you don't need to repay. You're gonna look at what your gap is. What do you owe at that point after you subtract the free money, right? Based on that gap, you're gonna determine as a student, am I taking out my loans, my $5,500, right? If you take out your loans, do you still have a gap? If that's the case, do you have a parent who's willing to take out a Parent Plus loan? Are you guys able to apply for a private loan? Do you have 529 college savings plans? Or are you gonna be able to get on a payment plan to pay whatever that gap is? So when you get those award letters in March, before you pay your commitment fee, you wanna make sure that you understand what your out-of-pocket costs are. If you are confused, please see your counselor, please call the college. You can come see us even if you're not coming to Akron, all right? Our goal is to help you make those decisions, and we will walk you through of reviewing or understanding that award letter, okay? It will arrive by mail or email. Parents, your students are young adults, and federally, legally, we cannot share this information with you directly. But students, I do encourage you to share your award letters and all your financial aid information with your parents. Once you make those big decisions and decide what college you're going to, there's something called a FERPA release that'll allow your parents to have access to your financial aid information and your academics if you choose to. So that is gonna keep that communication open. But students and parents, please communicate with each other about the different awards and just understanding so you know what those costs are for each individual college. And also get your students involved. I know it's harder. We had the example of the two types of students you may have, but for the ones who are kind of disengaged, kind of drag them along so they understand, especially if they're gonna be borrowing the money, borrowing those loans, so they understand what it is to borrow responsibly, okay? And then basically that award letter is gonna include again the scholarships, grants, free money, that $55,000 in loan amount that they can borrow, and then it'll list the cost of the university. And again, you're doing that math problem to see what is the gap or what is your out of pocket, and then you're gonna determine how are you gonna cover it. All right, and then this is just a breakdown, visual, of what I just shared. So cost of attendance includes tuition and fees, housing in your room and board, all right, housing and meal plan. So that's what the university can actually charge you for. Books and supplies, transportation, personal expenses, those are things that we want you to be prepared to pay, all right? So if your student has a car, for example, they're gonna need a parking permit. Every college is different, but for example, we at Akron, we don't charge them. That's not a part of their bill, but it's a third-party parking service that they'll need to pay for a permit. Miscellaneous personal expenses could be toiletries, furnishing their dorm, right? That mini fridge, all the snacks, or that can be that they eat out every weekend even though you pay for that meal plan, okay? And then books and supplies, that varies. We do have an all-in book bundle where if your student opts in, those book bundles will now be a part of the tuition and fees, but let's say they opted out, they're gonna research and find their own books and they're responsible for books, or maybe they need that laptop freshman year, right? So those are the costs that total about $4,700 that we want you to be prepared to pay, but it's not mandatory that you pay, all right? So those are the two types, direct and indirect. All right, so this is a sample of different Ohio colleges, all right? So at the top we have a private, public, and a community, all right, listed. That far column, that 52,000, 25,000, 7,000, those are the different type of costs, right, estimates for those different universities. That is for 1 year, okay? That's freshman year, and that's only the direct costs, right? That doesn't include that the $4,700 indirect fees, okay? So I'm showing you this just so you have an awareness of the different costs, but also to just reiterate, there's no wrong college here, right? It's gonna be based on your student, based on what fits. And a lot of students, when it's a private university, they see that 52,000, they're like, oh, can't go there, right? Don't count yourself out, and what I mean by that is those private universities oftentimes have different alum or different donors that are gonna give you big scholarships. You might get a $30,000 scholarship, right? Now, I'm not saying you're not gonna have to take out those loans, but don't think that just because that college costs that much that you can't afford it. So when you're applying and you're adding those 20 colleges to the FAFSA, still count the dream school, the private school, the Ivy League, all right? Include the public four-year. When you look at that, it's about half, right? The reason why it's half is because it's substituted, a lot of those costs are substituted by the state. So students aren't charged as much because the state comes in and pays for some of those costs. So it's about half of what a private school will be. And then that community college, $7,000 for a year for a freshman. So again, whether you are doing a trade program, we have something called Direct Connect. A lot of students have a partnership with the community college where strategically, maybe your student wasn't ready for CCP credits, right, as a high schooler, but similar concept, so they can go to a community college 2-year, get all their undergrad credits, their gen eds, their math, their science, all those things, and then once they get that associate's, transfer into a public university, okay? So you're saving money on the front end, and then maybe later they have that dream college experience and go to the private school or the public school, okay? But just ensuring that those credits transfer, they're still gonna get a degree that will say the Ohio State or the University of Akron, even if they start at a 2-year, okay? So just being strategic, like Ms. Ross said, everyone, college experience will look a little different, okay? But when you're looking at saving money and just being strategic, it's a great opportunity to start at that community college. All right, and then just to recap, you have that full cost of attendance, right? So tuition, fees, housing, meal plan, all those things. And you're then gonna determine, once we subtract the free money, scholarships and grants, what is our gap? What do we ought to pocket and how are we gonna pay it? 529, college plan, payment plans, are we getting a private loan? With the private loans, going back to when I said, like some parents say, my student can borrow all the money, they can't. If they're going to a private lender, they're gonna need a co-signer, okay? So things to consider, you know, parents, are you co-signing? Grandparent, cousin, aunt, do you have a co-signer for those private loans? And then employment, so again, working over the summer, strategically saving maybe for some of those indirect costs, or does your place of employment offer tuition reimbursement? And then special circumstances, I talked about that. If your income in your household changes, and maybe when you do the FAFSA, everything's fine, life tends to life. So maybe you're in the middle of the semester and income has decreased. Please come and see us. Please come and see your financial aid office at that college and share what's going on so they can recalculate your aid. Reminders, never pay for the FAFSA. Sorry, never pay for the FAFSA or scholarship opportunities. If it's free, it's for me. I tell my college students that. So you want to make sure you're not getting scammed. So studentaid.gov is the official website. If you're applying for scholarships and they're asking for personal or identifying information, please get out of there. It's probably a scam, okay? Read everything sent to you by the financial aid office. Parents, I know it's hard. They're sending it to your student and not you. So students, please share that information, those emails, the mail that comes to you with your parent. Turn in requested documents. So again, if you're selected for verification, the sooner you can get that information in, the more we can process, the quicker we can process your aid and package you. Have everything finalized by May. So that would be everything as far as the college admissions process, reviewing that financial aid letter, knowing what your out-of-pocket is, knowing what you potentially need to borrow in loans. Also, having those college visits scheduled or the new student orientation, have those things scheduled, okay? I think ours start June and end in, mid-August. June and then end in August, those new student orientation dates, okay? So have those things scheduled. I know that seniors, grade, and prom will be here, and the graduation parties. Please prioritize college. And then you can, of course, do all the fun things. And then again, if you have any questions, you can call our office. We will have a FAFSA Help Day. It's on the weekend. We haven't finalized that date for our event, but it is open to everyone. So whether you are attending Akron or not, you can come to the University of Akron with your student as a family, fill out the FAFSA, and it will be on a Saturday or a Sunday. And when we get that information, I will share it with Mrs. Ross, and she'll share it with you all. All right, questions? Don't be shy. I know that was a lot of information back to back. I know we are tired. And I'll hang down here too, so if it's a little more personable, we can hang back.
Thank you so much, Amiri. I truly appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to come share all this information. As I said, I will make sure that I email everyone, all parents, a copy of the recording as soon as I get it, along with the slides that I used, and then probably also Amira's slides as well, so that you guys have all of those documents at your fingertips. Like I said, we'll be down here if you have any questions. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and don't ever hesitate to reach out, email, call. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? Thank you.